Welcome to the Amazing Spider-Man series, where we go through every Spider-Man issue from start to finish. So today we're looking at the Amazing Spider-Man number 1. This was made simply because Spider-Man was really popular in Amazing Fantasy. They ended up giving him his own series. It's actually 2 stories in this one issue, and it was written by Stan Lee and illustrated by Steve Ditko. So real quick, we can see a Spider-Man sporting the same suit from Amazing Fantasy with the iconic red and blue. Fantastic Four are also featured on the cover. They seem to see that Spider-Man is trapped in this, what appears to be a tank actually. And real quick, I think that Fantastic Four were probably used in this to maybe boost sales of Spider-Man, since he's a brand new superhero, in order to make it more appealing to the readers. So we start off with Spider-Man being called a bunch of demeaning terms by a crowd of people, showing how there are still people who oppose him, including J. Jonah Jameson, who's one of the ones, calling him a freak, menace, and so on. So real quick, this takes place right after Amazing Fantasy. We could see Peter coming home after the entire incident. He's mad, ripping the suit off of himself. He also mentions how they no longer have a source of income in order to pay bills, because, his Uncle Ben is now dead. So Peter offers to quit school in order to help Aunt May. However, she convinces not to. He thinks about how he can actually steal money, but he realizes, he's not a criminal. He's not going to be stealing money and whatnot. If he got caught, it would break Aunt May's heart. He realizes that showbiz will make him more money, so a show is actually set up at his school. While everybody is excited to go, Peter mentions how he won't go. He's got school stuff to do. So Spider-Man ends up performing and he gets paid. However, he can't be given cash, for tax purposes, so he's actually given a check. When the guy asks him for his name, Spider-Man mentions how he can't give a name. He can't reveal his secret identity. Just make it out to Spider-Man. Once he goes to the bank, he has trouble cashing it, as he can't prove that he's Spider-Man without an ID. We then cut to J. Jonah Jameson writing about Spider-Man being a menace soon after the paper gets out. So the newspaper he was reading was actually the Daily Bugle, with J. Jonah Jameson being the publisher. He also gives lectures all over New York, talking about how Spider-Man is a bad influence on the kids. He doesn't even show his face, he's a coward, so on. He also mentions how his son, John Jameson, is a true hero, as he's a pilot. Peter is talking about the Fantastic Four and Ant-Man and how they are able to get away with it. They're able to do the superhero stuff and they make money off of it too. And still, some people see Spider-Man as a hoax and a publicity stunt. So Spider-Man looks for jobs that are found on the newspaper. However, nobody wants to hire him as he's way too young. As he's looking for jobs, he happens to stumble upon his Aunt May pawning her jewelry. So he then sees a kid talking about how John Jameson will orbit the Earth. Peter sees a picture of J. Jonah Jameson and actually gets mad at the picture and blames him for Spider-Man's shortcomings. So we now see that Peter went to the rocket launch and he's hearing people talk about how brave John is, and we actually see J. Jonah Jameson hyping up his son, and a bit later the capsule is sent into orbit. The capsule ends up failing and John is actually spiraled out of orbit, out of control, and we could see J. Jonah Jameson panicking, and then they try to save John. The capsule itself will crash. They can't save the capsule, they can only save John. And so they actually launch a steel net in order to catch it. However, that fails. And you can see Peter actually running to get his Spider-Man suit. He's the only one who can actually save John. Spider-Man gets to the Missile Control Center, surprises them, and mentions how he's the only one who could get up there. So they give him the guidance unit. J. Jonah Jameson calls him out. However, Spider-Man, shuts him up quickly and leaves in order to help John. So he breaks into a field, a military base, and gets into a jet with a pilot who agrees to help him. They fly close enough to the capsule to where Spider-Man shoots his web and actually gets onto the capsule. So he pulls himself up with the webbing, and once he gets on the capsule, he realizes that, they're losing tons of altitude. He has to hurry or they won't be able to do anything. So Spider-Man fits the capsule into its place, and we can see that John gains control again, and he ejects the parachute in order to land. The capsule lands, and J. Jonah Jameson's relieved. Spider-Man runs to his house as he doesn't want to be embarrassed or congratulated. He doesn't want to stick around, So a couple days later, he's reading the newest edition of the newspaper, and he sees that J. Jonah Jameson actually wants Spider-Man prosecuted. Peter's surprised as he saved his son, so why would J. Jonah Jameson want him persecuted? J. Jonah Jameson actually accuses him of sabotaging the capsule in order to steal the glory from John, from breaking into the military base and taking a pilot against his will. Now all of America sees him as a menace. There's a wanted poster out for him with a reward. Even Aunt May mentions how, they should capture Spider-Man as he could harm people. So even Aunt May thinks that he's bad. So Peter is now pondering on whether or not he should stop using his powers or become a menace like how everybody says he is, or, what he should do. And this is basically the end of the first story. So the second story is the Chameleon versus Spider-Man. So real quick, they actually call him Peter Palmer instead of Peter Parker for some reason. Maybe they were testing it, or who knows what happened actually, but Peter Palmer in this story, but he's, same Peter Parker. But basically, you can see him changing into nice clothes and going to the, what appears to be the Baxter building, the Fantastic Four building. And, he does this because he sees joining the Fantastic Four as a way to make money. So once he gets to the building, he can't access the elevator to go up. So, as only the Fantastic Four are authorized to get up there. So he actually sneaks in, and, a group of people actually see him as sneaking in and see it as Spider-Man attacking the Fantastic Four. So that's another way as he's seen as a menace. However, an alarm is triggered notifying the Fantastic Four that somebody is trying to sneak in. So Spider-Man breaks in, a window was left wide open. He sneaks in and, a cage actually falls and traps him. However, Spider-Man's able to break out of it in no time. The Thing attacks him, however, he's fended off as he was holding his punches back, and Spider-Man actually knocks him into the Human Torch. So Mr. Fantastic tries to catch him, making his hands really big and trapping him. However, Spider-Man is able to web his hands and sort of get him into a net. So, Spider-Man's just having fun here, and Invisible Woman tries to lasso him. However, his spider senses are able to see it coming. So he spins her really fast and she, spins out. Then the Human Torch tries to engulf him in flames. However, Spider-Man leaps out and just keeps leaping out of the way. After a while, Mr. Fantastic tells everybody to calm down and asks Spider-Man why he's there. To which he replies that he wants to join the Fantastic Four and he's expecting top salary as he's one of the best superheroes. He mentions how the exhibition they had was a show of what he can do. And so the Fantastic Four mentioned how they're actually a non-profit, so they only keep enough money to pay the rent and pay bills, and the rest actually goes to science. Spider-Man thinks that's stupid, so he actually leaves, and you could see that they yell, come back, but he left. We see the Fantastic Four talking about how they could have helped him, but he left way too eagerly. So we then cut to seeing the Chameleon break into the defense labs, where he steals part of missile defense plans, to which he plans to sell to the Iron Curtain countries. And real quick, Iron Curtain countries is during the Cold War, the Soviet Union basically. He sees that Spider-Man is actually seen as a menace by the media. He thinks about how it's actually smart for him to use Spider-Man as a disguise in order to get away with it and put all the blame onto Spider-Man. So the Chameleon, he designs a frequency that only Peter can notice due to his spider sense in order to meet him on top of the Lark building at 10 p.m. Spider-Man notices and he decides that he can't pass up on the opportunity as he needs money. The Chameleon sneaks in as Spider-Man. He steals the plans and he has webbing, however, it's much weaker, but he mentions how nobody will notice. He also shoots it out of the gun, which is kind of weird. As Spider-Man is swinging to the Lark building, he sees a chopper going away, however, he mentions that the chopper is probably coming from where he is going, but as soon as he lands on the building, the cops tell him to freeze. Chameleon got away already in the chopper. Okay, and then, so Spider-Man actually webs them, and he swings away, He knows he's been framed, and he remembers that the chopper was getting away, so he mentions how it's probably the chopper. He uses his spider sense to track it. Spider-Man, he webs as like a slingshot to give himself a boost and sort of parachutes down onto a boat. And he sees the chopper waiting to dock on a submarine. But he actually seals the submarine shut with his webs. And so the sub is, wanting to submerge, while Spider-Man is only focused on a chopper. So he gets on the chopper and he rips the door open. He calls the Chameleon a commie. Again, communist. Cold War. This was written in the 1960s. So when they land, he catches Chameleon and is ready to turn him into the cops. However, he throws a smoke bomb and gets away. The cops are actually searching for him in the building, but he disguised himself as a cop, so it's kind of hard for them to know where he is. So Spider-Man can sense this fake cop. However, when he's about to get him, the fuse to the lights is actually cut. However, Spider-Man can still sense him. His web fluid is gone, so he's not able to shoot. So while it's still dark, Spider-Man just he thinks, he's trying to exit, so I should run to the exit too. He's running towards the exit when he notices a figure actually getting away, so he gets him. And then the lights come back on, and he's trying to frame Spider-Man again. He mentions how, hey, he's got me, he's trying to get away. So the cops try to get him, but Spider-Man leaves. He just leaves. He's pissed off, He's noticing how how the cops can do whatever they want. He doesn't really care anymore. They can get him or let him go, whatever. He's done getting caught up in these bad situations for doing good things. The cops eventually catch the Chameleon because they notice that his suit is ripped and a bit of Spider-Man is seeping through. And we actually see Spider-Man, sobbing in the streets, wishing how he never got the powers. So we then cut to a quick scene of the Fantastic Four pondering on whether or not Spider-Man will turn evil, as, he is criticized a lot. So the main characters were Spider-Man, Aunt May, J. Jonah Jameson, John Jameson. And for a second story, we added on the Chameleon and Fantastic Four. So I think it was a great comic. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of the stories in this one. However, I'm excited to where we're going to get with the more popular heroes. I'm not a huge fan of Chameleon, as he's just a guy who, makes cool disguises. But so that's gonna be it for this video. So next week we'll be looking at the Amazing Spider-Man number 2. And yeah, thanks for watching. Goodbye, guys.